So, you've upgraded to PS Plus Premium, and now you're wondering what games are worth playing. Or maybe you're still undecided and wondering if it's even worth the extra money. Well, it's a good thing you clicked on this video, because today I'm going to show you the 10 best games to play on Sony's new PlayStation Plus service. Now remember, these games are only available on the premium tier. I'll give you a brief overview of each game, some key features, and why I think it's worth your time. Let's do this. Number 10. Bioshock Infinite, the complete edition. Whereas the first Bioshock game had you wandering the depths of Rapture in the Atlantic Ocean, Infinite does a complete 180 and places you in the flying steampunk city of Columbia. There's hot dog stands, item shops on the side of the road, park benches for you to sit on, and various monuments detailing important past figures. It's sort of like being at an amusement park when you think about it. Like the original, you're able to use weapons and various tools to complete certain objectives. The gunplay, in my opinion, feels wonderful. There's a certain level of satisfaction you get when handling the various weapons scattered throughout the game. And like the original, you can also use special powers. Gained by collecting vigors, they add a whole new element to the gameplay. You can throw fireballs, electrocute enemies, or send out a small murder of crows. I think that's probably my favorite. And yet, for as cool as the gunplay is, it doesn't quite reach the same height as its storytelling. Don't get me wrong, the first-person shooting mechanics are well done, but I don't think they're what makes this game so special. There's an aesthetic quality to the art design that reminds me so much of Beauty and the Beast. You know, the Disney animated film. That's what this entire game feels like. A really dark Disney film. On one hand, you've got a gorgeous looking game with vibrant colors and beautiful character animation, and on the other, you've got exploding heads. It seems like such a stark contrast, but for some reason it works. Not to give anything away, but Bioshock Infinite feels like one of those games that's more than a game. Number 9. Beyond Two Souls. If you told me this was a PS5 game, I would believe you. This looks amazing. The last game from developer Quantic Dream, Heavy Rain, felt way too claustrophobic. At least in my opinion. This right here is a breath of fresh air. The use of a wide camera lens just make things so much easier to see and navigate. It's almost as if they took the mechanics from Heavy Rain and tried to figure out how to improve it. And in some ways, I'd say they succeeded. Controls have now been streamlined from the previous game. It still plays like an interactive drama, but the quick-time events just feel more natural. No longer do you have giant arrows indicating what direction you need to press. Instead, when an action is required, you're given a brief second to figure out where you need to go. For the most part, it works. Your instinct will naturally guide you to whatever direction is needed, but there are occasions where things won't be quite as clear. The other half of the gameplay comes from controlling your friend Aiden. He's sort of like a supernatural entity you have a psychic link to. Basically, you press the triangle button when there's some sort of environmental obstruction. If a path is blocked, you can use his supernatural powers to clear a way. Or you can even use them to take over certain characters. It's pretty cool. Imagine a spirit that jumps out of your body and into someone else. Controlling Aiden is challenging at first, so give it some time. Trust me, it gets easier. The story is great in my opinion. It's engaging, it's interesting, it's told out of order, so you never know exactly what to expect. It's also told in a way where not much dialogue is necessary. You can feel the emotional connection with the characters just by simply walking through a house or engaging in a neighborhood snowball fight. There's action, there's drama, there's even a tiny bit of horror thrown in there as well. My only question is, who the hell goes to a birthday party without knowing anyone? Number 8. Gravity Rush Remastered. Where all my PS Vita fans at? This right here feels just like old times. Except everything just looks better. Textures now have more detail, sporting higher resolution with improved lighting and anti-aliasing. Running at native 1080p with a locked 60 FPS, this is probably the best you've ever seen this game look. From a gameplay perspective, Gravity Rush Remastered remains relatively unchanged, which unfortunately highlight a few issues that were in the original. Menu navigation is still a bit wonky. Just trying to figure out what I needed to do at first was confusing. Activating your gravity powers is simple enough, but in the heat of battle, it's easy to forget where you are in space. It's not perfect, but when you think about where the original game came from, you start to forgive some of its flaws. I mean, what other game do you know can make shifting the perspective of gravity fun? I love being able to jump off a building and taking flight, or falling from the sky and being caught up right before hitting the ground. There's this wonderful sense of excitement and playfulness that comes from all that weightless freedom. And although there's an open world map for you to explore, there's not much for you to do in it. Aside from the main story, you've got challenge missions and talking to citizens. But honestly, I didn't mind that at all. I think the benefit is that it makes the game more story driven. You want to keep playing just to see how everything unfolds. The game opens with you losing your memory, so you gotta spend time figuring out who you are and and what you're doing in the city. Cutscenes are told through beautiful comic book inspired images, which you can rotate the scene by tilting the DualSense controller. As you run around the city, you're accompanied by a soothing orchestral score that just makes everything relaxing and dreamlike. If you weren't able to experience Gravity Rush on the Vita, then now's your second chance. Plus, it beats having to spend $80 on eBay trying to get a physical copy. And with the extra money you're saving, you could always drop a super thanks. Wink, wink. Oh, stop it. Number 7. Wipeout Omega Collection. This compilation includes Wipeout 2048 and Wipeout HD, along with the HD Fury expansion. Both games feature upgraded visuals with improved lighting and textures running at 60 FPS. PlayStation 4 supports native 1080p resolution, but if you're rocking a PS4 Pro or PS5, you get that sweet 4K look. Just make sure you disable motion blur in the video options to get that true native 4K resolution. With a plethora of tracks and gameplay modes, this is the ultimate Wipeout collection to have. If you're a Wipeout fan, this should be Wipeout heaven for you. Wipeout HD looks gorgeous, but I think the game that benefits the most from this remaster is Wipeout 2048. It looked good when it originally launched on PS Vita, but due to the smaller screen and the complexity of the tracks, it did make things rather difficult to see. But on a larger screen with upgraded visuals, 2048 looks like a completely different game. Of course, PS Vita veterans will notice the similarities, but there's no denying Wipeout 2048 has never looked better. Also, because of the improved draw distance, I can finally see what's in front of me. I think it's safe to say everything has been improved across the board. Even the sound quality is better. Or maybe it's just because I haven't played a Wipeout game in so long. Every weapon has a distinct sound to it. Effects are crystal clear, and having a rocket barely miss you really gets your heart rate going. Of course, my favorite event has to be Zone, a mode from Wipeout HD where you basically have to survive for as long as you can while your ship increasingly accelerates after each lap. An absolute euphoric moment. I also love the names they have for each zone you enter. Look, I almost made it to Zen. It's funny how there's a zone called Zen because you really need to be in a Zen state of mind to make it that far. Number 6. God of War 3 Remastered. In my humble opinion, the best out of the trilogy. Forget God of War Ascension, the third game is where it's at. This remastered version has full 1080p support with smoother textures running at 60 FPS. There's a few dips here and there which can be alleviated if you play on the PS5, but that's a whole other video. Generally speaking, performance is solid regardless of whatever Sony machine you decide to play on. Also, all previous DLC costumes and content released is included in this remaster. The story picks up exactly where the second left off, which can be confusing if you've never played through the previous games. My answer to that is go back and play them. Like, what the heck do you want from me? The gameplay is similar to past installments, and although I absolutely love the new direction the studio took with God of War in 2018, the third game still manages to hold up. Its tried and true formula hadn't grown stale at the time just yet. Yeah, it's pretty much the same game you've been playing for the last 5 years, except it's presented with the utmost level of polish and care. It was amazing back on the PS3, and with the remastered version, it looks even better. Nothing was lost, and dare I say, feel like it's been enhanced by the better performance. It's bloody and gruesome as ever, leading to some of the most satisfying gameplay in the series. Some platforming sections haven't aged too well, but thankfully they don't require much finger dexterity. If you're keen on seeing what Kratos was like before taking on Norse mythology, check out God of War 3 Remastered. And before I present the next game, I'm just gonna ask that you hit that like button if this video has been helpful in any way so far. That would be awesome. Thank you. Number 5. Strider, a reboot of the 1989 original. Strider brings back hack-and-slash platforming adventure to current-gen consoles. A perfect blend of combat, speed, and exploration. Fans will notice a mixture of gameplay elements from past Strider games and even some parts from the original manga. It reminds me of a 2.5D version of Ninja Gaiden, although not as difficult but equally as cool. There's also a slight Metroidvania kind of feel to it. Although environments are huge and allows for exploration, there's an arrow which points you in the right general direction. I actually prefer this because not only does it let me explore the map, it also allows me to know how far I am from my objective. It's kind of like linear open exploration. And so you know, I made that phrase up just now. Visually, the game has a unique cel-shaded watercolor look. Characters aren't overly detailed, but I think it's the simplicity that makes it so appealing. A wonderful array of colors and lens flare help accentuate the fast animation. Take my word, this is one cool looking game. Of course, the main draw in my opinion is the gameplay. It may seem limited at first, but once more abilities are unlocked is when the game truly opens up. A beautifully choreographed dance of flips, slides, and bullets. Speaking of bullets, deflecting them is one of the most badass things you can do in a video game. Not only that, but the boss encounters are amazing as well. Big, bright, colorful, and always interesting to look at. More importantly is that none of them ever feel like they play out the same. For lack of a better word, they're just really awesome. This game has been out for a while, and for some may have been overlooked, but if you want some fast, fun, 2D hack and slash gameplay, then Strider is it. Number 4. Resident Evil. This might be the game that got me to buy a Nintendo GameCube back in the day. Although it's simply titled Resident Evil, you might see it listed as Resident Evil Remake, or the more popular Resident Evil HD Remaster, which is exactly what this game is. A faithful HD remaster of Resident Evil on the GameCube. It includes everything that made the original so great, but adds a few changes, making it more appealing to modern gamers. An alternate control scheme allowing you to forego the age-old tank controls, and a new widescreen option lets you see the entire screen. Not only that, but resolution has also been bumped up to a full 1080p. Not quite 4K, but leagues better than what GameCube was able to pump out. Newcomers might be turned off by the game's slower pace and methodical gameplay, but if you were there from the beginning, you'd know this is what Resident Evil was all about. Back when Resident Evil was about zombies and not werewolves or black tentacles. At a time when you had to count your shots or make smart inventory management. Back at a time when there'd be nothing creepier than a dirt path in the woods leading up to an abandoned cabin. A game that is as beautiful as it is grotesque. Walking down that dark, dimly lit hallway invokes a sense of fear rarely felt in video games, combined with the soundtrack that's as haunting as it is enchanting. For my RE fans, that save room music is pure nostalgia. You can just picture your childhood flashing before your eyes when you hear it. In my opinion, this is Resident Evil in its purest form, a game that defines what the franchise is all about. Future games in the series would eventually lose their way, succumbing to a more action-oriented approach, but the original remake is by far the zenith in zombie survival horror. By the way, did you know that the snake's name is Yawn? Not too many people know that. Can anyone tell me what the shark's name is? Number 3. Batman Arkham City. Taken from the Batman Return to Arkham collection, Arkham City features new lighting effects as well as improved graphics and shadow detail. In addition, the remaster also comes with all DLC included. From a gameplay perspective, I'd have to say this is probably the best Batman game I've ever played. It's basically Arkham Asylum, but only bigger and better. A lot of the skills and gadgets from the previous game carry over, along with a whole new set of moves specific to Arkham City. There's also a larger open world map for you to explore. It isn't so big that you'll need a Batmobile to travel from one point to the next, but just enough where you get a sense of its massive scale. Not only does the combat feel great, but the entire presentation just oozes Batman comic book source material. From the way the villains are portrayed, to the way the Batsuit takes damage over time, right down to the hidden little Easter eggs within the background. Arkham City truly captures the essence of the Dark Knight detective. It's dark, it's moody, it's everything I look for in a Batman game. And the missions never feel repetitive or unnecessary. Sure, you might be sent out to locate a particular item or whatnot, but it's never really out of your way. It's just perfect. And because the city is so full of detail, you just can't help but stop and admire the beautiful artwork. Also, the grappling hook allows easy access around Arkham City. Who needs a Batmobile? My one and only gripe with this game, which isn't about the main game at all really, is the forced Catwoman missions. Originally released as DLC, but now since it's included in this remaster, they're incorporated into the actual main story. Honestly, I think it hurts the game more than it helps. Luckily, these missions are quick, so you don't have to put up with it for too long, but you can really tell they were added as an afterthought. It's a tiny blemish on what is otherwise a perfect Batman game. Number 2. Uncharted, the Nathan Drake Collection. 3 of the best games now remastered for PlayStation 4. But it's more than just a simple remaster, as all games now feature graphical improvements. Cutscenes have now been re-rendered, models and textures have been updated, light and visual effects have been enhanced, and the games now run at 1080p, 60 FPS. For someone who's played the original games on PS3 religiously, I can confidently say this is a worthy remaster. A staple of any PlayStation gamer's diet. I don't know any Sony fanboy who's never played these games before. I mean, by this point, it's pretty much a rite of passage that you complete these 3 games. What's surprising to me is how well the first game still holds up. Not to be outshined by the sequel, but Drake's Fortune still manages to kick ass. The gunplay is as solid as ever, and the game runs flawlessly. Remember how the original had a crap ton of screen tearing? Yup. it doesn't have that anymore. The game looks better, plays better, and runs better. Maybe it's because I haven't played this game in so long, or maybe it's just a testament to how well the remaster was handled. Playing these games again made me fall in love with the series all over again. Whoa, check out those smoke effects! With each new entry, the game manages to push the envelope, bigger action set pieces, and more exotic locales. It's actually amazing to think that these were originally PS3 games. If you haven't played them yet, then I honestly don't know what you're doing with your life. 3 of the greatest single-player action-adventure games out there, all neatly bundled into one convenient package. By the way, let me know in the comments which Uncharted game was your favorite. Number 1. Mafia Definitive Edition. You know what I love about this game? It's linear, but it still has that open world feel to it. Like the environments are huge, but you never feel overwhelmed with the crap ton of stuff you have to do. And I think it's mainly because the story and side missions are separated by 2 different modes. Story mode focuses entirely on the story, of course, and Free Ride basically lets you wander the city looking for hidden side missions and collectibles. I kinda like that, the fact that the story and side missions are separated. But then again, that's mainly because I'm more for story-driven games. If you don't already know, Mafia Definitive Edition is a remake of the 2002 original, rebuilt from the ground up with new assets and an expanded story. Unfortunately, I never played the original, so I can't make comparisons. However, I can say that I was quite impressed with what I saw from the remake. The game takes place during the Great Depression, and although I wasn't alive in 1930, I can imagine this is probably what it looked like. You're a taxi driver, and somehow you get involved with the crime family. You walk a pretty girl home to her apartment, beat up some street thugs, and now you've got people shooting at you. It's typical gangster affair, but boy, is it told so well. Nice facial animation makes the characters believable, and beautiful lighting in the environments give everything a sense of life. Great dialogue and a suspenseful story makes this game not only fun to play, but fun to watch. Unfortunately, the game isn't perfect. The combat can be hit or miss. Luckily, there's not much of it, so you don't need to worry. And because of weird character animation, shooting can be somewhat of a challenge. I wouldn't call it glitchy, it's just not as tight as I would have liked it. My advice, just put the aim on auto assist and you'll be fine. I mean, the game has its problems, but when it's on, it's on. Great looking shootouts and awesome effects can't hold back what is otherwise a stellar game in my opinion. Now, these are only some of the games available on the PS Plus Premium service, but I picked out the ones I thought you guys would enjoy the most. Feel free to swap out any ones you don't like for something else. I tried my best to diversify the games as much as possible. And if you still haven't bought a PS5, then you might want to check out these videos. 10 games that will convince you to finally pick one up. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.